Welcome to the Sports Steady Podcast. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by nobody. And so I'm looking through the sports stuff and a couple of news stories today. Nothing really major going on as far as in the sports world. LSU's back in the top 10. Women's basketball, I don't really care. There's a pretty good story here with the Dallas Stars expanding their influence in the youth sports by purchasing local clubs and building new facilities in North Texas. So that's pretty good for the NHL Dallas Stars. And Caitlin Clark is another story that's been in the news cycle as she's gaining a lot of traction. People who are already anointing her the greatest thing since sliced bread, despite the fact that she hasn't played 1 ounce of a professional basketball game. And I'm not going to talk Caitlin Clark or Dallas Stars or LSU basketball. I'm not going to talk about neither of those because I think what I do want to talk about is the NBA All-Star Weekend. Now, for full disclosure, I did not watch not 1 second of any of the event. I've in real time, in live action, did not watch any of it. Didn't watch the slam dunk contest. Didn't watch the dog and pony show of a 3-point shootout between Curry and the girl from the New York Liberty. None of that. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch nothing of that. So I'm still going to comment on it. And you could say, well, how could you comment on something you didn't see? Because I don't need to watch it. Because everything that I said that's happening with today's sports has happened. And based on all the reactions to All-Star Weekend, I didn't need to watch it. Because I guarantee you, I would have said this, and I've already said this before the All-Star Weekend. I talked about the joke of the All-Star Weekend last year in a video on the All-Star Weekend. And now it seems that it has gotten worse. We saw the score. You saw the score. You didn't have to watch the game to know that there was no defense played. I mean, the final score was like, what, 200? 200. One team scored 200, and there was like over 100 and something threes. But what I did notice immediately from the social media was Damian Lillard won the All-Star Game MVP, and he took by himself. He took 23 3-pointers. He finished the game. I think he had 39 points. So that means that 33, he hit 11 threes. I think it was like 11 for 23 or something like that, according to the stat sheet. So 33 of his 39 points came from beyond the arc, where there was no defense played at all. So he basically won the All-Star Game MVP by hitting wide open 3-pointers. That in itself caps off the joke of the All-Star Weekend and the All-Star Game. Now, you could say, well, 3-pointers are amazing. That's the new age of the NBA. Go back and watch the All-Star Game. You don't even have to go that far back. Go back to, I keep saying clips of the 98 All-Star Game with Kobe and Jordan and all the guys, Grant Hill, Garnett, and all these players. And the versatility in the NBA back then compared to now. There's zero versatility. Zero. 33 points of your 39 from the 3-point line. And that's a celebration. That's something to be proud of. Oh, yeah, he got range. He's the best. And now people are saying that. People have the nerve to say that Damian Lillard is a better shooter than Steph Curry. Ever heard people say that? Now, they're saying that based off of an All-Star Game. Now, remember, not that long ago, maybe last year, a couple years ago, remember 2 years ago, like a few years ago, Clay and Curry were the best shooters ever, right? It was almost like they're the greatest shooters ever. These two, the Splash Brothers. Now, a few years later, then a year or two later, Curry's the greatest shooter ever. It was almost consensus around the league. Now, after All-Star Weekend, where a guy takes 23 wide-open threes, makes 11, in a game with no defense, now all of a sudden, Damian Lillard is the greatest shooter ever? Come on. I'm hearing people say that on TV. Now, whether they're saying that for shock value or because Damian Lillard is in the cycle as far as he just won MVP, maybe they're trying to feed the algorithm. I don't know. Because nowadays, you got to be real careful with these sports topics. People will say anything to be in the algorithm. Even people who formerly played. There's already been proof out there that the former players don't know anything about outside of what they did, right? They don't know much. They don't know any more than you and I. But we typically respect their opinions because they've played the game. But that means nothing nowadays because these guys, these former players, the guys who are on TV, they will say anything for clicks and views, even if they don't really believe it. So can we really listen to what they say and take it at face value when their sole purpose is to try to out-one each other in the space? That's all they do now. Go listen to Gilbert Arenas. This guy says all kind of stuff, and he played in the NBA. But if he played in the NBA, so we got to believe what he says and take it as fact. No, these guys are not in the fact-based business. They don't care about facts are boring. Yeah, we could sit up there and say, oh, yeah, the best player, John Stockton, was the great point guard, and he led the league and he all-time leader in steals and assists. And we could talk about how great Stockton and Malone was, but that would be boring. No one wants to hear that. People want to hear you say some other player is better than Stockton. They want to hear you say, Gilbert Arenas say, I'll bust Stockton's ass, knowing that, well, that there's video of Stockton giving Gilbert Arenas the business. But we want to hear Gilbert Arenas lie and tell us a story that may not be true because it gets more views. And that's what you're seeing today with these guys in the NBA. They're saying anything they can for clicks and views. They get on TV, they say anything for clicks and views, even if they know it's wrong. And because they got to one-up each other. Everyone has a podcast. Everyone has a TV spot. Everyone's trying to get the prime spot on television, the prime gig. If you want the prime gig, you got to be controversial. You got to be different. What makes you stand out from the other 10 former players? Yeah, you may have a title, but that means nothing. Charles Barkley has no rings, and but he stands out above the others. Charles Barkley is irreplaceable on NBA on TNT. He has no rings, right? So what are you going to do to stand out if you're going to take Barkley's spot? You need to stand out from the rest of the guys who may want that job 10, 15 years from now. So you see guys like Draymond Green trying to carve out his personality. Yeah, he has titles, but so does many other guys who are former players. He became a personality. He became everything that Draymond does on the court today, and Patrick Beverley and these guys, they're carving out their careers after they play the game, right? They're carving out their careers after they play the game. J.J. Redick, now his podcast is popular. He's become popular because he went after and said some stuff about the old school guys. Got a couple of viral clips going. You see Jason Williams is doing the same thing. When he came out and pretty much crapped all over, say, oh, Caitlin Clark's not great. Because, for whatever his reason was. Whether you believe he's right or not, at the timing of him saying that probably stirred up some feelings, right? People were upset about that. Why would you dunk on Caitlin Clark like that? She didn't do anything. She's a college basketball player. But controversial sells, right? People got on Kenny Smith for about a 24-hour cycle. And after that three-point shootout between the girl from, I forgot her name, Sabrina something, I think her name. And Kenny kind of pretty much said what he said. People were upset about that. So these guys, people they just want their name in the cycle, whether it's good or bad. They don't care. As long as they're in the cycle, as long as, they'll get invited to a podcast or a video or a show. Hey, let's talk about what you said, why you feel this, why you feel that way. And then it's just a cycle of attention going on and on. Everyone's feeding the attention algorithm. And that's what you see now with all these athletes. So we cannot automatically take what they say as facts anymore. It's not true. And the excuse of, they played the game, they know. That doesn't hold any water anymore. It just doesn't. But the All-Star Weekend has been a joke, and it's always been a joke. The dunk contest, I thought Jaylen Brown should have stayed out of it. And he was going to stay out of it. But then he got guilted and pressured to join it. I remember I was listening to WEEI and the local radio up in Boston, local show, and they were talking about how they thought Brown should get in. There's no risk, blah, blah, blah. He should do it. And I'm like, dude, he just signed like a $300-something million contract. And the Boston Celtics they need to win an NBA title. I thought that was the reason why he should have stayed out of it. But now the other reason is he was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. It was an embarrassing output for him. And now people are going to remember that. He's going to be a meme for the rest of his life. That's why guys like LeBron probably didn't want to join. See, while we can hate on LeBron and say, oh, LeBron's scared, he did that. LeBron understands his image. He already has a bad image of flopping and all this other stuff. He doesn't want to lose a dunk contest. These guys don't want to lose one-on-one contests. And you want to know the kicker with this All-Star game? Why there's nothing you could do to fix this? If you go back and watch, like, I don't know if any of you guys ever been to a off-season, like, I lived in New York for a long time, and I used to be over there. And sometime in the summertime, certain gyms, you get some NBA players show up, and they play these full-court games. They play these workouts. And in those games, those guys are playing harder. In those games, there's no cameras, there's nobody watching, there's no production. They play harder in those games than they do in All-Star Weekend. And the reason why, because they know they can play harder in those games and nobody knows. Only the players know. But nobody wants to be seen on camera, on video, of getting beat up or getting screwed or getting crossed up, or because it's not only NBA players that are in that gym, it's other guys too who are either semi-pro guys or just, they may know somebody, that player that shows up, workout buddy, and sometimes these guys also are in the gym and they get off too. But there's nobody there recording. Like, every once in a while you'll see a clip show up on social media, but there's not like a lot of long videos of the full game. You might just catch a couple glimpses here and there from a guy that may record it and post it online. But for the most part, these guys, they play harder in those games. I've seen it with my own eyes. So I think the bottom line is these guys don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to go toe-to-toe against the best in the league and potentially get embarrassed, where narratives will be rewritten based on how these All-Star games, if guys started to play hard in these All-Star games, narratives will start to shift. Conversations will be changed. Guys, the conversation will be who's better than who's what. If you remember back in the rookie game, I think it was, what's the rookie game? The sophomore game with Kyrie and Brandon Knight. How Brandon Knight was the one that got crossed up. I mean, this dude got embarrassed. Nobody wants that in the All-Star game. They don't want those moments. And at least the rookies, I mean, I don't know. I didn't watch the rookie game this year or the year before that. But at least for the most part, I remember the last time I really watched a rookie-sophomore game was the one, I think it was back when Elbow passed. That was the last one. Maybe, I don't know. I probably watched one sooner than that, later than that. But the rookie games were probably the last time these games kind of were a little competitive, in a sense. But nobody wants to be on a highlight reel. Brandon Knight's known highlight for his whole career is him getting crossed the hell up by Kyrie Irving in that rookie game. I believe it was the rookie. Let me check. I'm going to check while I'm talking to you guys. But I believe it was the rookie-sophomore game when it happened. I believe that's when it was. And I'm going to look right now. Yeah, it was NBA All-Star game. The Stars game, that's what it was. It was back in 2013, almost 10 years ago. And that was the game where Kyrie shaked and baked Brandon Knight. And those moments are going to live on, like Brandon Knight's career is going to be defined by that moment, right? The ankle breaker, step back. If you guys remember it, you can find it on YouTube. Just plug in Kyrie Irving, Brandon Knight, and you'll see it. And that happened during the Rising Stars Challenge. And so players don't want that. Players don't want to have those moments on video, on national television. They don't want to be embarrassed. So they kind of just let these guys. Oh, look at Luka tried to make a dunk. He embarrassed himself with a dunk off the backboard. It's just weird. It's just really weird that. But what are the NBA gonna do? Like, what's the solution to fix this? Honestly, You can't add no more money. There's no money that's going to make these guys. They're already making 20, 30, 40 million dollars a year. Some of them even making 50. So that's not going to change anything. What others are there to have? I heard one guy say make the home court advantage in the finals based on the All-Star game. To me, that makes no sense because every All-Star on the roster is not. Some of these guys probably won't even make the playoffs. So that would be dumb. Who's going to, half of the roster don't care. Think about if I'm an All-Star for like Detroit, I don't give a fuck if the Eastern Conference is the finals, gets to play in the finals home court advantage. No, I don't care. I'm at All-Star weekend. I'm happy in All-Star, but I'm on vacation for the most part. The All-Star weekend is pretty much a downtime for these guys to go to parties, to network, stuff like that, make appearances. They only show up because they have to. I can guarantee you, if they had an option to just not show up, they wouldn't show up. Trust me. They would not show up. And if they were able to finesse their way to be named an All-Star, but then somehow be hurt or say, oh, I'm banged up, they would do it. They don't want to be there. They really don't. They don't want to be playing in that game. They want to be there, but they don't want to play in the game. You could just see it. Like, I watched some of the highlights. I could just imagine how bad it looked. The highlights look bad. So I could just imagine, like, think about trying to cut up highlights for an All-Star game. Now, there's a lot of points scored, so yeah, you'll see a bunch of threes. You can cut up some highlights. But think about trying to find, like, a wow moment. And you think, well, I should be able to. The game was 200 points. There got to be something we can put together. It looked like it was boring. The guys like they did not want to be there. Like, come on. I don't know how you spice it up. I don't know what you do to make it better. I honestly think that the NBA might need to just get away from the whole all-star players and make the event more back to the fans. Meaning maybe go out and find some, make it about the fans. Think about this. The fans, loyal fans, they watch the games all year. They pay for tickets. They go to games. I think they should turn the All-Star Weekend event into a fan event based on fans. Go out, get some basketball players from different parts of the country, young people, do some tournament-type things. Maybe do some kind of scrap the celebrity game. Scrap that BS. Scrap it. Scrap it. If you can't scrap it all the way, maybe instead of not scrapping it all the way, maybe mix it up. Add some regular people. Or if you are going to have celebrities, maybe don't have them in the game. Maybe have them coaching a game of I don't know. You got to come up with something. I do know with the dunk contest, though, you probably could go out and get some regular dunks off the street. Like, and kicker, here's the only problem I have with that, is that these guys, like, we see the videos of these dunkers doing these crazy dunks on YouTube, and we understand that, at least if you have a brain, you do, that these guys probably practice like a million times. So we don't want to watch a dunk contest for 3 hours. So maybe that might be the best idea, but I think maybe going for, since it's already diving into that cultural space of hip hop and street ball, maybe have, instead of the All-Star game or instead of the celebrity game, scrap one of those events, maybe not the All-Star game, scrap the celebrity event and make it into a, get the best street ballers across each city, right? The best ones from each NBA city, have them represent an NBA team, have like an East versus West street ball type tournament, and have like the NBA All-Star guys coach the game. So like, I don't know, like have some kind of tournament of some sorts. I don't know, come up with something, okay? You got to come up with something. I think you got to do, each city represents a hometown guy from that city, voted in by the people in that city, street ball guys. Obviously, you cannot be a NBA player, or you can't be even a pro, like an NBA player or former NBA player. But you could be like, yeah, for the All-Star game, scrap the All-Star game, have each NBA team have one guy from that city represent that team and have some kind of street ball type tournament, kind of like an N1 thing, but more NBA control with NBA teams. That city gets to pick a guy. They get to know the player from that town. Maybe someone in the community that they like, they know, whatever. Bring them in, let them play. And then on the celebrity game, instead of the celebrity game, grab that and bring in and make a deal. Kiss him. Is it Ice Cube or Ice T? I think it's Ice Cube. Excuse me. From the Big Three, and bring the Big Three into the NBA circles. Forget all the. I know there's a lot of mess going on with that, with the Big Three and the infighting, but the Big Three would be a very important piece to the NBA All-Star Weekend. Kiss and make up. Hey, look, we made a mistake. We're sorry. Cut them a check and bring them into the fold for All-Star Weekend. Have the Big Three on instead of that celebrity game, right? Have the Big Three instead. And if you want to do some kind of celebrity / fun thing with maybe with WNBA and all that, you could probably do that on like a Saturday or something. Get rid of all those YouTubers and those influencers. Forget about them. If you want to pick them for the event, like having them playing in the street ball style play, sure, if they're actual ballers. At the dunk contest, go out and get some real dunkers from the street, guys who YouTube dunkers and stuff like that, and run it like that. And make it about the fans, because they don't want to play. Fuck it, don't let them. Forget them. Make the event about the fans. The fans will love to see their favorite dunkers and celebrities, because some of these guys are more popular than many of the NBA players anyway. Think about it. They'll love to see it. Think about it. You get to see a guy from your hometown. If you're a Pistons fan and you know a guy and you're in Detroit, and you know a guy in Detroit who's a baller or a big time dunker, a big time street baller, and he gets to represent your city at All-Star Weekend, that would be way more popular, in my opinion, than to watch a bunch of NBA players chuck up threes. Because you have the fan base, you'll have people tuning in. Everybody in Detroit will have their TV on. Because think about it, the Detroit All-Star who represents Detroit, he'll play, 2 minutes in the game? But you'll have an actual guy from Detroit who represents Detroit, the city, playing at in this Sunday game. And just like every other team. So every team will have one guy from each city that'll be nominated by fans and voted in, and they'll pick the guy and they'll put together a team, and the NBA All-Stars will coach them. So the lead vote getter for the East will coach the East guys. The lead vote getter for the West will coach the West guy. You have 2-3 vote getters, and they'll coach this team. So you have 2-3 guys. And then we get to see NBA players as coaches and assistant coaches, and then it'd be all fun like that, and they kind of talk trash and do their thing, and stuff like. I say if they import the fans more into the game. Now that's just a brainstorm. That's just obviously a rough draft on what they could do. Obviously, it has to be more to it because you still got a whole list of NBA All-Stars, and you can announce them as All-Star. Hey, before the game starts, you announce all the All-Stars. Say, hey, these guys are All-Stars. Appreciate them. They do well throughout the season. Have a little ceremony for them. And then get to the game with the actual basketball players and from each town. And have each player who made the All-Star stand next to the guy who was picked for the team. Right? Or whatever. You could kind of dress it up. They know do that production shit. They can dress it up to make it look good. Because trust me, these guys don't want to play in this game. So they wouldn't mind. As long as they can still be called All-Stars, they don't care if they play the game or not. I'm telling you. And this will probably be way more fun for the long haul. It will be way more fun to watch. Do it. I'm telling you. Just do something like that. And bring the Big Three in. Do whatever you got to do. You call up Ice Cube, say, hey, man, let's make this happen. Because the NBA, they on that bullshit with the trying to restrict the Big Three and stopping them and all that stuff. No. Bring them in so we get to see some old-time players or former players play a little 3-on-3, whatever the case may be. That'll be fun. And do that. And plus it helps grow the game, right? The winner will get local charity, build up some, donations to a school or a city or a town. You get bragging rights. It'll be a nice big little production. And I think the NFL should do something like that too. With flag football. Instead of these NFL players playing flag football, go out and get the kids. Go out and get some the neighborhood people from each city, one guy from each town, from an NFL team, play some flag football, and let the NFL players enjoy their weekend. NBA players, whatever. Or you could do something else. Maybe you can integrate some mixture of NBA versus NFL type deal, right? Because you got some NFL guys that play basketball. You can do a little charity with that. A little celebrity NFL versus NBA, whatever. Some little cross promotion. Who knows? You can do, there's a lot of different things you can do, right? There's a lot of different things you could do. I don't know. I'm just saying. But something needs to be done with the NBA All-Star Weekend. Something got to be done. And I don't think incorporating a home court advantage is not going to work. Because this is supposed to be an exhibition. It's supposed to be fun at the same time as competitive. You want competitive, but you also want to still keep it fun. And you don't want to put too much on the line. Like saying that, because we're going to give a guy a home court advantage or a team. No. Leave the regular season out of the decisions of this All-Star Weekend. Keep it All-Star Weekend. But just make sure it's fun for the fans. That's all you got to do. It's really not that complicated. It's really not. So we'll see what they should do with that. So, women's basketball. Now, I'm going to touch on this and then I'm going to... This is supposed to be a short podcast. Under an hour. It's considered short for me. I addressed this before, but I never got around to it. But I'm going to do it now because I don't know when I'm going to chance to do it again. So, I hear a lot of talk about one of the ways to make women's basketball more engaging. And we know that the whole crossover three-point shootout between Steph Curry and the girl from the Liberty, the whole point of that was to try to convince people to like the WNBA. Like say, hey, look, the girls, they're still good. They almost beat the men. And they trying to sell that to you by saying, look, if she would have been playing in the contest, she would have made it past the first round. Like they trying to come up with all this mental gymnastics to try to convince you that this girl is somehow is just as good as the boys or girls play with the boys, right? They're trying to convince you of that. That's what they're trying to do. But the bottom line is she can't, right? She used her own ball, which is fine in the contest and in a little fun shooting. But could a woman realistically shoot with the boys if she had to play under the rules of the boys? Because it's a boys' league. No, she cannot. Now, all this shooters can shoot bullshit. Yeah, shooters can shoot with their ball. But the balls are smaller. The dynamics are smaller. It's a different type of game. Sitting around in an open gym shooting basketballs is not the same as playing in a game. We're nowhere close to a woman being able to play in the NBA. Okay? I think we need to cut that out. We got to stop. We can acknowledge that the girl, and this is why the women's basketball is taking a lot of hits. It's because we're trying to compare them to men. That's why they are getting crushed. And they only do that because they don't want you to criticize. See, if you compare a women's basketball player to a man and say, oh, she's good enough to play with men, that's the bait to get you to come out and say, no, they're not. What are you talking about? She'll get destroyed by the men. Oh, how dare you say that? You must be a misogynist. You hate women. You must be gay. That's the trap, right? That's the only reason why they say it. Because they want to be able to throw that back at you, and they also say it because they know most people will hold their tongue in the world of today where you must watch what you say or you get canceled, so people will go along with it. Yeah, good girl. She can dominate the men. Look what she did. She almost beat Curry. Curry's considered the greatest shooter ever, right? So if she almost beat Curry, then everyone else must shut the fuck up. You can't say nothing because she almost beat the greatest shooter in the planet. So it was all part of the game. It was all part of the dog and pony show to try to somehow convince us that we must invest more because these women are actually good. They're way better than we thought. She almost beat Curry. But I will tell you this. Is it that they're just as good as the men? Or did the NBA and basketball in general over the last 20 years, did they feminize the game of basketball in order to make it more reasonable or sensible that we can believe that women somehow can compete with men. They feminize the game of basketball by eliminating physical contact in the NBA, by making the game more of a three-point shooting, which could mean anybody can shoot threes. No defense, no accountability, flopping, acting, all type of feminized traits that game of basketball, right? Look at the outfits. Look at the stuff they wear to games. It's almost like a LGBT night. And no offense to the LGBT community, but we know what the agenda is. They're trying to push a more feminized product so we could be more okay with women coming in. And while at the same time they're trying to masculate, they're making attempts to masculate the game of women's basketball by making them more tougher, making them more dominant, as far as like they're more aggressive, right? Look at all the top players that are marketable. I mean, no offense to Caitlin Clark, but she looks kind of manly, right? Great, she's a good women's basketball player, but she looks manly. These women are very manly looking. We know the WNBA is like 98% lesbian. They don't mess with men in theory, like most of them. Look what they did to Candace Parker. Candace Parker was married to a NBA player who went to Duke, educated, successful black male, 6'11", I think it was, Sheldon Williams. All of a sudden, this woman is now a carpet muncher and became really masculine. And now she's all over TV after her career. They want to feminize men's basketball and make basketball more masculine. And in an attempt to bridge the gap, I guess. I don't know. I mean, Brittany Griner, who some people think is a man. I don't know. Some that. I don't know. I'm just what. I mean, we heard Brittany Griner speak. I mean, her voice is deeper than mine. I mean, she's 6'8", 6'9". She's a man. Manly, I guess. But this is the attempt that's going on here. And under no circumstance can any woman in the WNBA play with the men. And they tried to cover it up because you remember a few months back after the WNBA won the title, LA Aces, I think they call, won the WNBA title, and Clay Travis came out and offered, Clay Travis from Outkick, offered a large sum of money to the WNBA team if they can play against a high school championship team of his choosing. And then NBA players came out and to the defense, they put the cape on. How dare you, blah, blah, blah. NBA players ran to the defense of women's basketball and said, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. This is a PR stunt, right? This whole stunt with Curry and that. Look, we can acknowledge that the women's basketball players individually, some of them are really good women's players. But if you want to incorporate them in the same league with the men, you must be prepared to accept the backlash for that. That's all we're saying. Right? The same thing I said about with LeBron James. And when LeBron promoted his kid to say that his kid can somehow play for the Lakers right now and lead them to a title when the kid's averaging 5 points per game in USC. And it's not on a team that sucks. When you invite conversation and you put yourself in that boat, you expect to get what comes with that. You know, like you have to expect that. Like you can't, everybody's not going to agree with your takes on the WNBA. Everybody's not going to agree with me. Some people may think these women are awesome and they can beat the men. And they're allowed to believe that, right? They're allowed to believe that. But the reality is that they're nowhere near as talented as the guys. Even Serena Williams, and this is why I have a problem when Williams is, you see these lists that float around with the greatest athletes ever, and Serena Williams is on the list, and you're like, why is she on the list? And she's high on the list. I mean, it'd be like a top 10 list, and they'll be have her like 5 or 4 on that list with like Jordan and all these other people. And it's like, why is she on the list? Greatest athletes ever? Why is she on the list? And my argument with that is that she admitted herself that she wouldn't be able to play against the men she would be ranked 150th if she played in the men's league. So that means that the 150th ranked person that happens to be a woman, the best woman, is considered the great one amongst the greatest athletes ever. But we don't even know who the 99th ranked is. Like anything outside like the top 5 male tennis players, no one gives a fuck about who the rest of them are. Anything outside the top 10. So if you're ranked number 99, you're sitting at home, you're like, man, I'm amongst 100 best men in the world. But then you got this woman who, yeah, she dominates women's tennis, even admitted that she's not as good in the men and would be ranked in the 150th amongst men, but she's considered the greatest athlete ever over you. And you know you can wipe the floor with her as the 99th ranked man. So why is she on this list? She shouldn't be on it. There's a large gap between the number 1 man and the number 1 woman, and that's about 150 spots, which means that you should not be amongst the greatest athletes ever. Now, you want to make a list of the greatest women's athletes ever? Yeah, you will be at the top of the list, but you're not amongst the greatest athletes. You're not in the Michael Jordan category or the rest of the great athletes, Bo Jackson. Come on. All these, come on now. Like, we have to be realistic. And it's nothing wrong with saying that, but we can't say that today because we'll be called misogynist if we say that. So we can't comment on sports. Women can comment on male sports. They have women out there on TV now that comment on male sports. On ESPN, Fox Sports Radio, CBS Radio, NFL. They all can have their opinions on male-dominant sports. But if we somehow have an opinion that says, well, you know, women are not as good as men, oh, somehow we're bad, we're evil, we're misogynist, we're terrible people for speaking out on the truth. But that's what happens when you're trying to integrate. There's no reason to try to integrate male and female sports. The women, let them be great in their own space, and the men are great in their space. That's it. But if you try to mix it in, we're going to call it. We got to call it how we see it. So we got to stay consistent here. If we're going to call out men joining women's sports, dominating and taking over, and saying that's wrong, that women must be able to be criticized when they try to put themselves in man sports thinking that they could beat men. We know you can't compete against men. That's why there's now with men, regular men who are not even amongst the best athletes are inside your sports beating you, whether it be swimming or college basketball. I saw one story where a guy injured a woman, and these supposed to be people who are like transitioning or whatever they calling that crap today. And these are not even the best male athletes in the world. These are just some dudes who couldn't cut it as male athletes, and they decided, hey, I'm just going to throw a wig on and some makeup, and I'm going to play with the women on some Joanna Man shit. And they're busting your ass. So the reality is the women are not close in the athletic department to men. And it's okay. It really is. There's nothing wrong with that. It's an acceptable defeat. Be great in your space. Be great as a woman. You don't have to be compared like Caitlin Clark. You don't have to be compared to Steph Curry. There's no pressure for you to do that. Be Caitlin Clark. Be great as a women's shooter, basketball player. There's no reason for you to have to compare yourself to be Curry and I'm going to be the next Curry. No, be Caitlin Clark. Go to the WNBA. Hopefully you can maybe bring that league to some excitement and not put pressure and try to pressure us to support it. If the sport, we'll come and watch it. We don't need to be forced. Don't try to force it down our throats by diluting the NBA game. Because that's what they're doing. They're diluting the game to try to beef up the women's game. Because they figure, well, if you guys love three-point shooting and fast pace and threes from the men, then why not go watch the women? They're doing the same exact thing. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get us to convert, forcing us to watch the women because they're taking away all the stuff the men did great. Play defense, in the post, rough and tough, dunks. They want us to see three-point shooting, standing around, cuts and all that, just like the women do. But it's not translating because people are tired of the men now. They're like, come on, the NBA is weak. It's watered down. And they got a nerve to talk about they're going to expand the league. The NBA is running the biggest heist, the biggest racket in sports history. Like Adam Silver, he investigated for racketeering. There's no way you think it's a good idea to expand. A money grab. Of course they're going to expand because of TV contracts. The TV money. Oh, you want to expand? Well, that means more TV money. 2 more markets. Now we know it's going to be markets like a St. Louis or something like that. Somewhere where there's a TV market that needs another team that can bump up that TV market. They're running a racket. They're watering down the product and getting over fist. NBA teams are now worth $2, $3, $4 billion now. New TV deal come in, those teams will be worth even more. The bubble's soon. And Mark Cuban knew that. I think Mark Cuban knew. That's why he sold the Mavs. The bubble to burst. Or maybe he sold it thinking he can go out and buy something else that's going to be worth more. There's a big investment coming in now with soccer in the U.S. People are starting to make investments into that. That's going to be the next $1 billion gimme. So many NBA players have invested in that too. Some former players, some current players. I know LeBron's been invested in that. And so soccer or US MLS is going to be the next one. So we starting to see a trend here, folks. Sports is a big Ponzi. As I say, I guess we could call it a big Ponzi scheme in the world of sports. That's what it is. It's a Ponzi scheme. That's why I stopped buying. I don't go to games. I don't buy tickets. I stopped buying merch of all the sports because it's all a scam. I'll sit here. I'll talk sports. I'll debate it. But I'm not going to passionately debate sports anymore either because in the last 20 years, the era has been so bad. Like, you can't compare. And I said this before. No player playing today can ever realistically be considered in a top 5 all-time slot. The only guy that's still playing that you can maybe argue it is probably LeBron because most people are throwing him in there. No other player playing right now is coming close to top 5 in any position. I don't care what it is. Nope, not Curry. Nope. Nobody. They're all never going to be top 5. None of them. Because that's how bad the competition is. That's how bad the era is. This era is really bad. You can say that guys are scoring more points and they're shooting more threes, but that doesn't mean the game is better. You want a guy shooting 23s a night in the NBA? Come on now. Well, where's the versatility? Where's the post-up bigs? Where are the bigs? Where are the big men at? Where are the centers? Come on, man. Where are they? Where are the Patrick Ewings, the David Robinsons, the Keem Olajuwons, the Shaquille O'Neals, Bowls? We have no versatility. The Sabonises, the Vlade Divac types. Where are they? They don't exist. They don't exist. There's zero versatility in the NBA today. Zero. Everybody's a 3-point specialist. That's it. It's kind of boring. When you go up 30 and you can still lose the game by 20, I mean, what are we talking about here? That's the NBA today. You can literally go up by 25, 30 points in a game and still lose that game by 20. It's happened. That ain't the NBA. That's a clown show. That's it for this episode of the Sports Study Podcast. We'll be back. Next episode, I'm going to try to, stick to one topic that might work better for me. But anyway, that's my little rant on the All-Star Weekend and women's sports, whatever. Call me what you want. I don't care. We'll be back next week. Sports page run by sports fans. Peace.